Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Auto Driveaway's Drive Time. Today we have Mr. John Sweeney, who represents our New York office. John, welcome to the platform.
Good morning.
How are you doing? How's everything out in the Big Apple?
I'm doing well. We're just having fun as usual out here.
So, John, tell me a little bit about, let's start with your background. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been at Auto Driveaway, how you came to be here, where you were before that.
I've been at Auto Driveaway for about 13 years here at this office. Prior to that, I actually worked for the previous owners as part of Auto Driveaway at an auto auction in New Jersey, in Fairfield, where we did AD Auto Auction, and I was the operations manager for that division. And then about maybe 2 or 3 years after that, maybe a little more, I got a call, and they said, we're looking for an operations person at the Auto Driveaway Stockholm office. Would you be interested? And I came up, and it worked out.
All right, so you've been running our New York office, as we call it, and you've been running that for 13 years, you said.
Correct.
So what are
Correct.
what are the challenges that you face on a regular basis? I mean, not only running what is a pretty large office, but then, dealing with maybe the intricacies that is the New York market.
Well, it's the New York market. It's complicated in ways, and it's very busy. And sometimes you have to use the busyness to your advantage. Because sometimes you can you'll get synergies and you'll get opportunities from the volume, and other times the volumes can be a pain in the butt because we all have to put out fires in our day-to-day ops. And sometimes when there's a lot of orders, you get a lot of fires. But sometimes on the opposite of that is sometimes when you have a lot of orders, you get a lot of things that work with each other that can actually make the day work out smoothly. And a lot of things go with each other. So you're not just sitting there wondering, oh, how can I get this done? Oh, look, this delivery works with this pickup, and this pickup works with this delivery, vice versa. But it can be challenging because with our customers, you never know what the volume is going to be like. We know it's going to be a lot, but we don't know like what days you're going to get them. So you always have to act with a sense of urgency. Like everything is important. And as the orders come, the first thing I always tell the staff here is, look, as soon as we get an order, someone calls on it and qualifies it. Make sure we have the right address, the right phone number. That way it's already started. That way we're starting out, and that way it's already on the map. So I know, all right, look, I'm working on this delivery already, or I'm working on this pickup. That way I can look at on what I already have and see, hey, I got something that works with that already. Let's see if these dates can work together.
Right. So obviously lots of moving pieces, no 2 days are the same. What excites you the most about, obviously I can feel your passion for what you do. What excites you most about your job?
Well, what I do like about it is that no 2 days are the same. You know what I mean? And this kind of thing, like you can't be a stick in the mud. I'm definitely not a stick in the mud. You know what I mean? I like change. I like, pressure can be okay. It can keep you going. You get to complete the day, and it doesn't like go through the motion, so to speak. And if you get into your rhythm, things don't get to be overwhelming in that way. Because sometimes you might think, oh my God, we're doing all this. How the hell are we going to get this done? Well, that's when you have to take into consideration things like time management and prioritization of certain things. And when you get all that going at the same time, you can really operate a well-oiled machine. And at the end of the day, when you're done, and it is a high stress environment, and there is a lot done, you actually, even though not everybody's going to say, hey, Sweeney, great job today, you can know, like, you did good. And that's another good point. Like, I always try to reach out to the drivers and to the staff and tell them, hey, awesome job today. Hey, good job. Just like the same way you tell the drivers before they leave, hey, be safe out there. If you need anything, call me. You know what I mean? Because all that, all those things have a meaning, and all those things in the end, will get you what you're looking for. And what I'm looking for is just to have a fulfilling day. You know what I mean? And just to have one where we had some certain goals, we achieved them, And the ones that we didn't, we're gonna come in the next day and try to knock the cover off the ball, try to hit home runs that haven't landed yet.
Yeah.
And if you have that same morale, that same mindset every day, the good things are just gonna happen for you. Like you create your own luck, I always think, in a lot of ways, and by by working hard and having the right systems in place, and really important, having the right people around you. You know what I mean? When you get all those ingredients together, what you're cooking is going to be really tasty, and everybody's going to want to take a bite. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's talk about those people. Let's talk about the team in the office and then your drivers. How do you motivate? It's crazy. Every day is different. There's a lot going on. How do you keep your team motivated and energized and focused on the job at hand?
Well, the first thing you do is you want to keep everybody engaged. And the number one way to do that is to listen to people, and to make everyone has to feel important, and everyone needs to know that their role is important, and that the wheel's not going to turn unless you're sitting there and you're executing your job. It's a big thing with the drivers too. Like, you want to make them feel like they're a part of something. There's so much to do. You don't want people to feel overwhelmed. You don't want to make them feel like they're not part of something. And you want to make us think that they count, and you want to be a good listener. And that's one thing that personally I've had to overcome that a lot, in a lot of ways, because sometimes I can wait to speak and not really listen. And I think that's a fault a lot of us have, because you're so urgent, you're such in a rush to tell your story that you're not waiting to hear that person's story. And then once you get that and you hear where that other person's coming from, then you can kind of like be a coach in a way where, the best coaches get the best out of their players. So if you know what motivates them and you know what you can lean on them for, then you do it. You know what I mean? And you're going to get a great response from them, because people usually know what their strengths are. So if you play to their strengths, you're playing in their comfort zone. And the way you really do that is through communication and listening, listening to the wants, and, you know, always having the time for them, and never feeling that, as a leader, never feeling that you're overwhelmed.
From a customer perspective, right? So, what differentiates us? What are they going to get from Auto Driveaway, from your team, that is going to make their experience, seamless?
Well, the number one thing that you can always compete on is service, you know? And when you do things the same way all the time, you get consistency. And if you could do those two things, that's a recipe that tastes so good for customers, service and consistency. Not like, oh, they did good on that. No, we want to do good on every single aspect of it. Everything's got to be fast. Everything's got to be right now. So if you can make time for the customers, like, hey, can you pick this up? This is a rush. This is an emergency. This is at an impound. When you can actually do those things and make it happen, you can save them money. You're going to want some experience where they say, oh, hey, you got that done for me, that emergency one the other day. I have another one. I don't know what's going on this week. And then when you have the confidence to execute that, that gives the customer the right experience. And that's what we want to give them at the end. You know what I mean? You want to give them the right experience, the right customer service, and you want to be there for them as their business partner.
Yeah, I think to your point, you build up that trust, and then people come to rely on you. Where do you see Auto Driveaway? You've been here for 13 years. What are you most excited about where we're headed and what's going on with the organization today?
Well, several different things. We've made a lot of advancements in our technology platform, that I think are really good, because it gets the communication out there between us, the customer, and the customer service rep. So there's no like mystery to a lot of things, because if you're doing a good job, you don't have to worry about things like transparency, and then that's what customers are always looking for, some kind of transparency. They don't want to be in the fog about things. When you have that transparency and you have technology that can work to your advantage, it allows you to scale a lot better. It allows you to get busy and not be overwhelmed, so to speak. We've had a lot of momentum here in the New York office, in New York City office. You know what I mean? So, and I see a lot of momentum building around the company in general, which I find really exciting. You know what I mean? Because once you get that momentum going, it really gains speed and becomes hard to stop.
I agree. So, John, as we wrap up, tell me a little bit about, when you're not moving cars and vehicles and motivating your team. What do you like to do outside of work?
I'm a big fisherman. I've been fishing my whole life. I if I'm not
Where do you
working,
go and what do you catch?
right now we catch striped bass. In the summertime, we try to catch tuna if we can. But what I really like about fishing, I don't get this in a lot of things in life. What I say about boating and fishing, it brings people together. It takes you somewhere, and we learn something every time. And there's a ton of camaraderie with it. Everybody's on the same page. It can be like a good atmosphere at work. You know what I mean? Everybody's trying to achieve the similar goal. And like when I take people that don't go, or I take people's kids, and everyone has a good time, like, my smile's bigger than theirs. You know what I mean? I'm grinning ear to ear, and it gets you into an element, with fishing, you get into nature. It's all kinds of things. For me, it just checks so many boxes. Like, it's incredible,
Right.
and I always
And
like to share that with people.
yeah, and relaxing to some extent, right? I mean, it gets you away from the hustle and bustle.
Correct. Correct. But then you get the excitement too, because we try to catch a lot of fish. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Well, John, thank you so much for spending some time with me. Love learning about New York and everything that you're doing. I know it's a crazy office, but I think you seem to thrive on that craziness. I can't imagine it any other way. So thank you for everything that you do.
Hey, thanks for having me. Have a good day, Kev.
Thanks, John.
You got it.